Good morning, good afternoon. Welcome all to this GLF event co-organized by FAO and the CGIAR research program on forests, trees, and agroforestry. More than ever, forests are called upon to address the great global challenges of our times, among which climate change, biodiversity, erosion, poverty, food insecurity. The G20 has just called for further effort to halt deforestation, and in the Glasgow COP, forests and forestry are one of the key issues. They can also be the key solution. So this is why today, to focus our session on possible solution and share a note of optimism and hope at a time when delegates from all over the world are meeting in Glasgow, today we want to give the floor to students and young people that will be the guardians and managers of tomorrow's forest. And we want to hear some of their ideas to unleash the potential offered by innovative technologies and scaling up to advanced sustainable forest management in Asia and the Pacific, but also with relevance to the whole planet. So all the 13 years contribution that we will present today have been collected, gathered as part of a process called the Asia Pacific Forest Sector Outlook process, coordinated by FAO and C4, that be carefully selected after an open call for consultation. So thanks to the close to 80 contribution we've received since the beginning, between 18 and 35 of age, citizens or residents in the Asia Pacific regions. And I wish that this contribution will inspire you and that this event will be the occasion of fruitful discussions. James Rochetko from C4 Aircraft will moderate today's session, and we'll tell you in a few minutes on how the discussion will be organized. But first, I would like to thank our FAO colleague and friend that guided and supported also the whole process. And so over to you, Rao Mata, to add a few introductory words.
Thank you very much, Vincent. Hello, good morning, good afternoon, good evening, everyone. Dear delegates, colleagues, members of the youth, ladies and gentlemen. On behalf of FAO's Regional Office for Asia and the Pacific, it is my great pleasure to welcome all of you to today's event. As has been mentioned by my colleague and best friend, Vincent, this is a joint event organized by FAO and C4. And he has already highlighted, and also as you might have already noticed, that forests are increasingly being called upon to address a number of contemporary challenges, first and foremost among them being the climate change. But there are two prerequisites to meet that kind of challenge. Number one is enhancing the uptake and scaling up of innovative technologies in the forest sector for increased productivity, profitability, and generating new products and services, and also greener jobs, basically making the sector more attractive to young people. The second prerequisite, in my view, personal view particularly, is the active involvement and engagement of youth in forestry. The Asia Pacific region is particularly home to almost 60% of world's youth. There are about 700 million people in this age group living in Asia and Pacific. And they are indeed a potent force for social change. They are not only an invaluable resource for the future, but they are indeed the future. So from that perspective, I think it is very, very important that we continuously engage them, involve them, and make them a bigger part of our planning process as we move or as we transition towards what we call sustainable forestry. So this is, it is with that kind of intention, particularly to involve tech-savvy youth to play a pivotal role in enhancing the uptake and scaling up of innovative technologies for forestry. When we are talking about technologies, we are talking about digital technologies, biological technologies, technical innovations, and all that our colleagues will elaborate in the next few minutes. So youth can also be the champions of innovation, forward-looking, and out-of-the-box thinking. So that is why FAO and C4 wanted to strengthen this youth engagement, seeking their experiences providing an opportunity for sharing their perspectives for sustainable innovations in the forest sector. So we are indeed eager to hear them. So, and also I must express that we are also grateful to all the participants, as Vincent mentioned. So 80 to 100 initial submissions have been screened. So we are indeed grateful to all of them for their contribution to what we are developing as a kind of roadmap for the application of innovative forest technologies in the context of Asia Pacific. So these contributions, as you all agree with me, illustrate in various contexts the potential of innovative technologies for advancing sustainable forest management in the region, not only in the region, but perhaps everywhere, everywhere else in the global context also. We also hope that this process will help open up new perspectives, create new opportunities, and address specific challenges that are being faced by the sector in the contemporary context. Thank you again for your valuable contributions, and we look forward to hearing from you. And I also thank once again our C4 colleagues, particularly Jim and others who have taken extraordinary pains, Fabio and all, for making this event really happen as we planned today. Thank you. Over to you, Jim.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Mata. I guess first of all, let me thank Vincent and Mata for the very nice welcome and opening for this session. As I said, you know, this is really something that we really like to focus on, the youth contribution to innovative technologies in the region. As said, we're going to have 3 sessions or 3 sub-sessions. We'll go right to the first session. So the first session is going to be about innovative technologies to facilitate and improve forest monitoring. We'll have 6 presentations. Let me just quickly introduce the speakers. There'll be Shah Rukh Kamran from Pakistan, Kuhu Lee from Korea, Angga Suputra from Indonesia, Cecile De Jesus from the Philippines, Juan Sarzinski, sorry about that, from Vietnam, and Maria Jessica Gabriel. So there will be 6 presentations, as I said, the videos. So please, Kas, we can go ahead and run the videos.
Good day, everyone. My name is Shah Rukh Kamran. And do you know that drone technology can airlift sweep nets for insect monitoring? As insect populations decline around the world, that also threatens prey availability for species like bats and swallows. Therefore, this pilot study conducted together with another study on the coexistence of such flying insectivores, which requires better insect monitoring methods at different heights. There are many existing insect trapping methods, but they do not have the potential to monitor dynamically. Clearly, the aim of this study is twofold. Firstly, to prepare drones and nets as an alternative to conventional sweep nets over large areas. Secondly, to test their effectiveness. I believe such a usage of drones is still largely not in use in many developing countries. This study conducted in northeastern Germany, where we used 3 different treatments, a conventional Mali trap and 2 innovative drone net designs, with a single hanging and 2 fixed nets for 6 different heights covering 4 types of habitats. Now, shedding some light on few results. This graph here is a summary of insects caught at 6 different heights. Note that most insects caught by the Mali trap at a height of 1 meter is due to its large surface area and being close to the ground. On the other hand, the insects caught with drones get decreased gradually. So in conclusion, only a very few specialized insects can fly at higher altitudes. The second graph summarizes flying insect orders across all sampling sites, where true flyers were the most frequently caught, followed by thrips, wasps. Among the least encountered were the butterflies and the lacewings. In conclusion, Mali trap caught 7 taxonomic orders, while each type of drone caught 5 taxonomic orders. In fact, it was hard to compare the results directly due to different net designs. To summarize now, It revealed that hobby drones equipped with homemade special nets can be used for dynamic insect sampling, but only at lower altitudes, up to 20 meters, due to their limited performance at higher altitudes. This study also paved the way for future studies to consider the potential of drones to follow mid-flight hunting behavior of such flying insectivores and to work further on range of factors influencing their effectiveness. This method is not only limited to crops, but it can also be applied on tree canopies and other aquatic areas. I am sure that this technology gives us hope to get a proper understanding in real time, especially if it becomes affordable for farmers, ecologists, and entomologists. However, I also believe it will be challenging to apply the method, especially in areas where there is no proper legal policy and less human resources operating the drones itself. And that's it. Thank you very much, everyone.
Restoring forest ecosystem has been emphasized as one of the main nature-based solutions to combat climate crisis. However, many projects have failed and even accelerated the deforestation and degradation of natural forest. Therefore, appropriate degradation assessment to design suitable plan and monitoring of restoration progress are essential for successful restoration. But current ground survey is limited by small sample plots because people cannot measure all thousands of trees in the site. This sampling method sometimes occurs imprecise results. Meanwhile, drones can rapidly cover entire restoration sites. Therefore, this study introduces innovative technique using drones for surveying forest. Then how can we measure what we want to know about the forest with drone pictures? To find the answer, a pilot study was conducted, and necessary of further development of a forest degradation index was introduced. In a pilot study, drone pictures could be processed to color photo maps and 3D models. The color photo map had the information of color and shape of trees, and 3D model had height information of objects. And those two formats could be analyzed for detecting forest attributes from sky. Moreover, multiple attributes derived from drone data can be developed into an integrated index system. Forest ecosystem is complex to evaluate. Each variable itself cannot be enough to represent the condition of a forest. On the other hand, the integrated index score can consider multiple variables at the same time and express into a simple number, so it can be easily understood and communicated by the general public. Consequently, policymakers and planners can use it as a decision support tool with various stakeholders without complicated expertise about forest ecology. More researches about forest degradation index can be found from FORU website. You may worry that applying advanced technology can be expensive. Yes, it is true about the initial cost. But considering that drone survey can reduce labor and time consumption, especially as monitoring works need to be repeated, total cost can be saved. Furthermore, as drones can cover entire site, you can get more accurate information.
Hello everyone, my name is Angga Saputra. Today I'd love to show you about my research estimating tree height, canopy cover, and also tree diameter with unmanned aerial vehicle technology. Forest inventory is the core of forest sustainability management system. Forest inventory is used to collect data and information about tree stand parameters such as tree height, diameter, and also canopy cover. Those tree stand parameters are related with biomass and also wildlife conservation. But the first inventory at the moment still do it manually, which mean need much energy and also time. The drone technology is expected to be more efficient and effective to estimate the tree stand parameters. Industry test was conducted in Ciamis Forest Management Unit, which edge classes 4, edge classes 6, and also edge classes 8. The purpose of this study is to generate a model based on UAV data, estimating tree height, canopy cover, and also tree diameter for thick trees. The first high spatial resolution was founded from the images captured by drone to estimate the tree height, tree diameter, and also canopy cover. The value of ground sample distance range 3 to 4 make the correlation of tree diameter, tree height, and also the model close to 1, which means they have a strong correlation, and the difference between two methods to estimate the canopy cover is low, which means the error is only 0.028 to 0.098. And then we also found that the drone technology is more effective and also efficient in time and energy. The drone only needs 5 to 9 hours to estimate the 33 stand parameter, and we need 2 days field activity to estimate the same activity. And the conclusion of this study is the drone can acquire high quality picture, which after processing can lead to very precise estimate of these 3 parameters much more quickly and at much lower cost than field inventory. And the drone technology can support the conservation forest activities such as in mangrove, and also support the activity to estimate the carbon stock. So that's all of my research. Thank you so much.
Hello, my name is Cecil De Jesus, and this is Follow the Water. So, this is about using advanced technologies to map out or predict the flow of water, whether that's a shortage or a deluge of, based on changes in forest areas. This aims to demonstrate the direct effects of deforestation towards people and communities using water as an impact measurement device. The 5 advanced technologies here are satellite data, plant identification apps, social media, machine learning, and blockchain technology. So satellite data is used for real-time monitoring of forest boundaries, as well as forecasts of weather conditions, as well as rainfall levels. Plant identification apps would allow communities to contribute on plant identification. It's also good for crowdsourcing data on what species would be beneficial to a certain locale. So usually these are native species. Social media is for community discussions, collaboration, and also we can push out notifications and warnings on potential impacts of typhoons, rains, and other weather conditions, so that could be floods, landslides, or similar effects. Machine learning can be used to predict the movement of water through communities depending on the landscapes. So based on data collected from satellites and even inputs from users. Blockchain technology has a lot of uses in this case, so researchers can get funding from anywhere in the world. Foresters could file their reports, submit reports without having to disclose their identities, therefore keeping themselves safe. Concerned citizens and communities could also interact along with local government units, environmental organizations, and international organizations as well. So there's this thing called decentralized autonomous organizations in the blockchain industry, wherein you could automate dispersal of funds. Community members could also submit proposals, whether it's for reforestation or research, bioresearch, and the community could vote on these proposals whether to fund or not to fund. And then if the votes lean towards funding, then funds could also be automatically dispersed. So this would make reforestation efforts and bioresearch self-governing and autonomous. Yes. So that's it. That's my presentation. Thank you so much.
Hello everyone, thank you for coming today. So today I'm going to present my work I did with my lab in Singapore with under Janice Lee. And I'll talk about the Google Earth Engine, an innovative technology for forest conservation. So one problem we had historically for forest conservation is that land cover reporting was exposed to errors and manipulation, like for example, corruption. And so today we have the opportunity to use like a large open access satellite imageries and high computing powers to build like independent monitoring system where we don't have those issues of manipulation and errors. And because we have a lot of data sets, we also can fuse those data sets together and increase the accuracies of our own analysis. And it is especially important today that because of the Paris Agreement, we need to monitor, report, and verify like carbon emissions. And also with the FLEGT and REDD+ scheme, we need to make sure there is less deforestation and less land cover change. So those technologies like Google Earth engines are very useful for those different international initiatives. I'll show you an example of what I did for my master thesis. And so we start with forest land cover here, water, and palm oil, which were like the most important. So first I did like those polygons there using Google Earth images. And for each polygon, I said that this was forest, or this was palm oil, this was like background crop. And all this information, later I fed it into like an algorithm I built in Google Earth engine. And this algorithm, I just reused one from a past study. I slightly improved it. And then feeding the data inside it, I got an output of a map like this, showing like palm oil areas and forest areas in some provinces of Indonesia. And if you do it for different years, like for example, I did for 2010 and 2015, you can really see differences between those years. And these differences are as a proof that there was like deforestation or change in land cover in some areas. And this information can later be used for monitoring or law enforcement and to improve like forest monitoring. Thank you.
Hi everyone, I am Maria Jessica Gabriel from the Philippines, and I will be sharing with you today the Spatial Monitoring and Reporting Tool, or SMART. Global forest cover continues to decline, and the number of plants and animals are also decreasing. This is because of inefficient law enforcement and forest monitoring. A tool that could help us identify illegal activities and monitor wildlife was developed by a group of non-government organizations. This is called the Spatial Monitoring and Reporting Tool, or SMART. SMART is a set of free tools that enables data collection using smartphones or tablets. It informs decision-making and adaptive management. My partner and I talked to SMART users and developers to see how SMART has contributed for forest law enforcement and monitoring. They have seen a gradual decline in the number of illegal activities throughout the years of SMART implementation. They also observe an increasing number of wildlife in the field. SMART also enables the employment of forest rangers, data managers, and technical staff. It also empowered them because of the series of trainings and capacity building. SMART also monitors the activities of forest rangers and provides them with an efficient patrolling plan that covers most high-risk areas. Implementation of SMART is not entirely free. For SMART to work, one must have a smartphone or a tablet and a computer. According to the developers, there is a high demand for SMART, and they cannot do all the trainings alone. So what can we do? Governments can support SMART by adopting it as a national strategy for protected area management and allocate resources to keep up its implementation. Non-government organizations and institutions could also take part by conducting trainings and share their resources to cover more users and protected areas. Conferences such as this are also pivotal to encourage more users and supporters. Currently, there are more than 1,000 protected areas around the globe that are being monitored using SMART. However, let us remember that SMART is just a tool. The success of protected area management will still be reliant on how we respond to the information SMART gives us. Thank you.
Okay. Well, first, I want to thank all 6 of the participants for a nice video presentation. So that was quite useful. I know there was a little bit of a glitch, but hopefully everyone can hear the presentations now. One thing I would like to announce is that there are colleagues from the team who are facilitating the chat as well as the questions. I can't see the questions here, but so go ahead. Don't be shy. Go ahead and send some questions in. Okay. So what we're going to do now is do some polling. Are the questions? Have the questions appeared? What I'll let you know is that so for this first session, again, the question is based on the presentations. What's the greatest potential for innovative technologies in the area of forest monitoring? Okay. So the A is the assessment of ecosystem services, water, biodiversity, carbon stocks. B is tracking of illegal activities and facilitating law enforcement. C is inventory of forest productivity, carbon stocks, timber stocks, and health of the systems, the health of the forest systems. And then D is none of the above. So can someone let me know if they can actually have the questions and options appeared on the screen? Not yet.
I don't see it.
Okay. All right.
I'm also not seeing anything.
Okay.
Okay, it appears that the polls are not coming up properly on the InWin platform. So maybe we can move ahead with the session 2, and then we might go back to polling at the end.
Okay. I guess I'll just mention about the session 1. So what really struck me about that is that the very diverse applications for the monitoring technologies, right? So the ecosystem services, also tracking illegal activities, et cetera, and so forth. So quite impressive. So we're going to go ahead and move on to session number 2. Session number 2 is about innovative technologies and how that facilitates the engagement of civil society, communities, smallholders, and youth. And for this session, we have 3 presentations. One will be a speaker. So that will be Sonal Lama from Nepal. The second presentation will be from Noor Bahar from Malaysia. And the third will be June Mandawali from Papua New Guinea. So I think with that quick and hopefully clear introduction to the session, Case, we can go to Sonal Lama for her presentation.
Warm greetings. Do you know that Nepal continues to be at the lead of community-based forest management practitioners globally? However, the deforestation rate has increased by 25% over the past 20 years. Here, we mobilized 68 community forest user group members of 7 remote districts of Western Nepal to take the pulse of their forest territories via Forest Watcher. Forest Watcher is a mobile application that brings satellite data forest data sets of Global Forest Watch, which is a remote sensing product, into the field to collect near real-time tree cover loss, deforestation, and fire alerts. From 2001 to 2020, the study area lost 4.63 kilohectares of tree cover. This tree cover loss released 2.74 metric tons of greenhouse gases. From March 2020 to December 2020, 285 birds and 2,983 glass alerts were reported. The tree cover loss was minimal in those districts where there were a higher number of community forest user groups. This highlights the effectiveness of community-based forest management practice in improving forest cover and overall forest conditions of Nepal. The data from Forest Watcher are being shared in real time with divisional forest offices and concerned authorities, enabling them to react promptly to the emerging threats. The integration of remote sensing technologies like Forest Watcher offers considerable computational capacity at just a tap of a finger. Such personal digital assistants have significant potential to enhance community participation in the data collection process, thus contributing to the successful adoption of community-based forest management practice. Forest Watcher has enabled stakeholders to visualize and evaluate forestry-related information in ways that benefit decision-making process. Also, it will be crucial in enhancing present conservation efforts and devising long-term conservation plans. Thank you.
Okay, Sony, thank you. Fabio, I guess over to you so we can get the second video, the second presentation.
Across the world, the youth are demanding for more inclusive, transparent, and effective rainforest monitoring and management. This is the aspiration of the youth in developing tropical countries where deforestation is widespread. One of the technologies to monitor forests is the satellite technology. Depending on the specification, the satellite can give you images of a daily, weekly, monthly, or yearly period. Given this amazing technology, our paper explores ways to engage youth in tropical forest monitoring. We use 3 case studies from Malaysia and Indonesia to identify factors key to their successful adoption. Our first case study shows how HAKA, organization founded by Aceh youth, leverages on satellite technology such as Google Earth, Planet, and Global Forest Watch. These platforms allow them to monitor forest changes in near real time and prioritize areas to patrol. This targeted approach is critical considering the 2.6 million hectares of Aceh forest to look after. Secondly, the Hutan Watch platforms demonstrate the use of Global Forest Watch integrated with local information such as permanent reserve forests, totally protected areas, and critical landscapes. The Hutan Watch platform promotes forest transparency as many of these data are not usually available for public use. Thirdly, Urun Data is an example of how youth, especially the university students, can contribute in data gathering and verification through games. As you can see here, you can swipe left or right if you think the image corresponds to natural primary forest. Your answer can help the Urun Data team to verify the satellite images. In the 3 case studies, we found that the youth are generally familiar and they like to use the technology. To foster their interest, we need to train and build their capacity and create a community of practice. With the right incentive and social media campaign, we can increase the adoption of satellite technology among youth. Technology is not perfect, hence we need to do rapid prototyping so that we can fix problems quickly. Our case studies show that when empowered with the right technology and enabling factors, the youth can be a positive force in monitoring and tackling tropical deforestation. Thank you.
Community-based tree nurseries are a form of innovative technology that can facilitate the engagement of civil society, local communities, smallholder farmers, and youth groups. Community-based tree nurseries were used in the Ramu Makam Valley to assess the level of participation and engagement of community members in innovative sustainable forestry through forest landscape restoration and/or reforestation. For this research, we engaged local community members in 5 villages to observe their participation in engaging in nursery construction to basic tree nursery training to raising seedlings. Basic nursery training involved soil sieving, soil sterilization, tubing, seed sowing, transplanting, hardening, and outplanting. Prior to establishing community-based tree nurseries, a biophysical and socio-economic diagnosis was conducted to understand the community dynamics and socio-economic factors surrounding the communities in engaging in forestry projects. In Papua New Guinea, individuals belong to a group or clan that forms the basis of land and resource ownership. Hence, this arrangement regulates and determines any activity occurring on clan land. The planning process was research-based, with funding assistance from Australian Centre for International Agricultural Research, where it assisted in conducting nursery construction using bush materials and available materials, and also we conducted nursery trainings in the 5 villages. Technology transfer was evident through the engagement of community members who used the knowledge gained with certification to also find employment elsewhere within the valley through employment with the biomass industry and the oil palm industry. As visualized here, tree seedlings grown from the community-based tree nurseries were outplanted on grasslands and degraded sites as seen in these images, where youths were engaged as well as women and children, although they do not appear in these images. This was done as an innovative action toward forest landscape restoration of degraded sites within the 5 villages. Therefore, community-based tree nurseries are an innovative technology and can be used as a tool to facilitate the engagement and participation of local communities, civil society, and youth groups. Thank you.
All right, well, thank you. First, I want to thank the 3 speakers, so Sony, Noor, and June, for their very nice presentations. Again, maybe a couple of words. I think it's interesting that so engaging the civil society communities and smallholders also works into what we talked about in the first session, improves monitoring, transparency and accountability. It also is very useful for participatory forest governance. So by, those checks and balances. And also, as we heard in the last presentation, it's also promoting community forestry, right? So empowering local communities to produce high quality germplasm, which is an area that I'm very interested in. So it helps them also restoration, improving, decreasing degradation of the forest. I think what we'll do, we're going to try to sort out the issue with the polling and the questions. Some of the questions are coming through. So please continue to send in some questions. What we're going to do is go ahead and go to session 3. We'll save a few minutes and then we can have a longer question and answer period. So I think that seems to be the appropriate thing to do at this point. So we will go on to session 3. So this is innovative technologies to support optimization of process and product technologies to promote sustainable forest management. And we have 4 presentations here. So Sanjaya Raj Tamang from Nepal, Clarence Gale Almoite from the Philippines, Prachi Gupta from India, and Desi Ramata from Indonesia. And this is these are going to be some very diverse topics. So this will be quite interesting. So Fabio, I think back to you so we can run the videos.
Hello and namaste from Nepal. It's me Sanjay presenting on invasive species management, a pathway to sustainable forest management. This presentation is based on our participatory action research of community managed forest in Nepal. Our study area here you can see it's heavily invested by invasive species, particularly Mycena micrantha. And we all know the challenges this invasive species poses to forest managers, in particular to community members, who are also the primary forest managers in our case. At the first, we map the spread of invasive species over the whole 6,000 hectare forest area, which is being community managed, and assess 2 models of participatory management. They are intensive management and extensive management. These management models are being applied based on site conditions Intensive management is being applied to heavily infested area where the total above ground biomass needs to be manually removed. Such manually removed biomass is being processed to produce traditional compost, which will help to sustain the cleaning operations. Natural regeneration is being promoted on such sites, and for the sites with low natural regeneration potential, native species plantation on the recommendation of local people are being done. Coming towards extensive management, this practice on sites with low level of infestation and where natural regeneration are already present. Release operations to assist native seedlings and saplings are done periodically, which is done more intensively during the monsoon period, or also which is also the active growing period of plant species. These two management models, adapted to different local conditions, have been able to see noticeable progress in terms of forest restoration in our study area. Some important takeaways from the research could be control of invasive species will help to restore forest and promote effective management. Community involvement in such activities will help to strengthen local ownership and commitment towards conservation and management. Plantation should be focused on sites with limited natural regeneration potential only. And regarding plantation, for the choice of species, indigenous species should be favored over exotic species, which will be both economically viable and ecologically sound. Activities like production of compost will provide financial resources to support forest management activities. That's all. Thank you.
Good day, everyone. I am Clarence. The Philippines is regarded as a mega-diverse country, as well as a global biodiversity hotspot. A large part of this rich biodiversity is hosted in forest ecosystems. Today, Philippine forest ecosystems face severe pressures, affecting not only flora and fauna, but also the local communities that rely on natural resources for a living. How to address this problem? The Philippine government created a program called the National Green Program, or NGP, to regreen the country, focusing on restoring degraded forest lands. The program also aims to improve the lives of local stakeholders by encouraging them to grow trees with economic benefits and establishing local nurseries such as mechanized and modernized forest nurseries, or MMFNs, which are capable of housing millions of seedlings. Yet, the National Commission on Audit reported that under the greening program, local stakeholders or people's organizations have planted exotic and invasive tree species such as Gemelina and mahogany mainly for economic purposes. In addition, in combating food insecurity amidst the COVID pandemic, nurseries also house commodity crops such as vegetables. Our MMFN should be fully operational for the housing diverse native tree species. The study reviewed and analyzed MMFN operations in the country and explored the potential of geotagging, mapping, and other available digital technologies to facilitate the identification of mother trees in the wild to improve the production of seedlings of native species. Considering the current capacities of MMFNs in the country, it will be necessary to evaluate potential seed sizes that are compatible with the machines in the said facilities to identify possible native mother tree species within the jurisdiction of the regions with available MMFNs. This strategy will undoubtedly provide opportunities for local stakeholders and other partners on growing native tree species and its sustainable utilization. Thank you very much.
Wood has been an integral part of human life since time immemorial. Do you think it is possible to identify a tree just from a piece of wood without actually looking at the tree? The answer is yes. It is possible to identify wood by examining its anatomical structure. Wood is made up of different types of cells, and with the discovery of microscopes, scientists found that there are differences in size, shape, and arrangement of different cells in a wood, which has helped them to identify it. The study of wood anatomy is not just limited to wood identification, but it is important to many scientific disciplines such as archaeology, systematics, ecology, etc. In this paper, we have reviewed the advancements that has taken place in the field of wood anatomy with the innovation of different microscopy techniques. Light microscopy is the most widely used and the simplest method to study wood anatomical features. It helps in studying different anatomical features of wood from 3 different planes, which helps in wood identification. But this method cannot be used to study 3-dimensional structure of wood directly. With the advancements in microscopy, wood anatomists started using electron microscopes to investigate wood anatomical features with much higher precision. It allowed to study ultrastructure of cells and 3-dimensional arrangement of tissues and cells in a wood. But these techniques are invasive, as in one needs to cut very thin sections of wood in the laboratory, which is both time consuming and laborious. And it is not always possible to bring wood to the lab. For example, when one is studying historical artifacts or archaeological wood, it is not possible to bring those samples in the laboratory. Some advanced techniques have made it possible to study wood structure without actually cutting the sections. For example, reflected light microscopy and X-ray computed tomography. These techniques can be used to study opaque samples of wood. But these techniques cannot be used on wood surfaces that have been coated with paint or degraded to some extent. Scientists have also developed xylotron system for on-the-spot quick identification of timber, which helps in combating illegal timber logging. But this identification is usually limited to commonly used timber in a particular country. Non-invasive techniques, they are quite novel and they're still being explored by the scientists. Each technique comes with its own advantages and limitations. One can employ different techniques based on the objective of their study. More work is needed in this area to make timber identification reliable, fast, and economical. Thank you.
Hello everyone. It's a honor for me can contribution and introduce myself in front of you. My name is Desi Ramatia. I am from Forestry Department, Faculty of Forestry and Environment, IPB University, Indonesia. Here, my paper, literature review of production process and self-bonding mechanism in binderless particle board. Around 80 until 90 of the global particle production is used for furniture. Particle board represent 57% of the global consumptions of wood-based panels, and demand for particle board is growing at a rate of 2 until 5% annually. Synthetic adhesives are widely used for particle board because of their low cost and fast drying time. However, they release gaseous formaldehydes, which is harmful to human health and the environment. Binderless particle board is a sustainable, healthy, and environment-friendly alternative to conventional wood-based particle boards made with synthetic adhesives. This study reviewed the cell bonding mechanisms, namely hot processing and steam injection processing. In the cell bonding mechanism, heat and pressure cause the partial decompositions of hemicellulose and lignin, as well as chemical reactions that create natural bond in binderless particle board. The characteristic of the resulting particle board, such as density or particle size, vary according to the manufacturing processing used. Based on a review of the available literature, this study analyzes the potential of non-wood lignocellulose material, including canaf, oil palm, and bamboo, as raw material for particle board. Canaf core can be used to produce low-density binderless particle board with a good sounds and thermal insulation properties for building interiors. The significant lignin hemicellulose content of oil palm make it an excellent raw material for binderless particle board productions. Bamboo binderless particle board produced with waste from the bamboo processing industry is a value-added product that can contribute to achieve net zero carbon emissions. I think that's all from my presentations, and see you.
Okay, well, thank you again. Let's thank the 4 presenters from that session. So Sanjaya, Clarence, Prachi, and Deji, thank you very much for a very interesting set of presentations. Like I mentioned before, what I find interesting there is that we covered a lot of different types of technologies, a lot of different functions for forest sustainability. We looked at basically, you can say resource use efficiency for wood. Looked at some aspects for restoring and addressing biodiversity conservation, and then processing and project quality as well. So thank you again. What I think we're going to do is just go ahead and move into some questions. We have a little bit longer time, more than 20 minutes. So let's hope that this can work efficiently. I think that the first question that we received is, this will go to Maria Jessica, and it's a question about have you compared the use of Earth Ranger and smart technologies? So and since maybe you know, if you're aware of the Earth Ranger program as well, or what other types of systems have you used, and how do they compare? So Maria Jessica, please go ahead.
Okay, so thank you, James, for that question. I haven't done the comparison between Smart and Earth Ranger myself, but I believe that Smart can be integrated with other platforms such as the ArcGIS and the Earth Ranger as well, and also the Google Earth images. I believe that they have also integration with these platforms.
Okay, all right. There's a follow-up question that maybe I'll ask you as well. So what about in the situation where you have low internet connectivity? How does that affect the use and application of the smart?
Okay, so there are 3 platforms of Smart. So we have the Smart Mobile, Smart Desktop, and Smart Connect. So usually the forest rangers, they are the ones using the Smart Mobile. So they use the mobile phone or tablets in the field, and then they collect using those smartphones and tablets. And then they don't need to have a internet connection to use the application. They just need to have a mobile phone that can record GPS locations. And whenever they need to transmit the data, they need to connect it with the desktop or with the computer. And if they need to transmit the data again to another level of management, then I think that comes the internet connection. That is where the Smart Connect is being used when they transmit to another level of management.
Okay, yeah, well, thank you. Okay, because I mean, we often talk about the real-time data, and so the point there is that it's real time, but only when we do in fact have the connectivity adequate. So I think maybe the same question to Sony Lama, if that's okay. So the same situation is that, maybe in Nepal, especially the rural areas, the internet connectivity might not be as strong as people would assume. So please address that.
The Forest Watcher app, as I told you, it brings satellite-derived forest data sets or online forest monitoring and all our system of global forest watch offline and into the field. And regardless of internet connectivity, you can monitor the areas of interest, navigate to a specific point to investigate, and collect the information of what you find, regardless of internet connectivity. But indeed there are some initial steps, like first you have to specify your area of interest. So for that you need internet, and for the rest of the process you do not need internet connectivity.
Okay, so very much the same situation. Okay, and Noor Bahar, maybe the same question to you. So how do you deal with that? Or does it, as we had from the last two questions, it doesn't actually affect you directly?
Just comment on the case study from Indonesia, where we do have the users use the games, for example, in some areas where the internet connection is bad. So we did mention about technical limitation as one of the big issue for adoption of this technology. But I guess with the Global Forest Watch, for example, they are trying to accommodate the use of these apps when it's offline. So they acknowledge that this is an issue, but there are ways to overcome that technical limitation. Yeah. So it's an ongoing issue. I guess it's across the board, across the different technologies that use the remote sensing and the internet.
Okay, thank you. We also have a question more. This is something that went on in the chat as well, but I think it's quite interesting. So about the blockchain technology, Cecilia De Jesus, I think you had some very interesting comments in the chat. So could you talk about that? How you mentioned that it's, how it actually is very dynamic and applicable. So go on.
So when blockchain started, it was proof of work. So the more hardware you have, the more mining power you have. But of course, lots of people complain, and then tech builders came up with solutions, which is proof of stake. So this is essentially the amount of tokens that is delegated to you means you have more mining power. So it's as simple as selecting a mining pool from a drop down in an application. So this is more software than hardware now. And it's not that much different from running it on a laptop or having a data center. So it's not bad anymore. We're not using proof of work as much as before. So I think right now only Bitcoin is really doing that, but there are several blockchains that don't do this anymore.
Okay, well, thank you. All right. We also have a question for Shahrukh. Let me see it. Okay. Can you apply the drone net method in tropical countries as well? So you're from Pakistan, but you did your work in Germany. So how do you think that would work to apply it to a country like Indonesia?
Yeah, thank you very much. As you can see in the paper as well, I referred some studies. There are similar attempts. They have been applied in Australia, US, and South Korea. So that proves they can be applied in different terrains. And indeed, they can be applied in countries like Indonesia on rice paddy fields as well. But you have to follow the rules and regulations and technical stuff.
Okay. And then also there is a little bit of a follow-up. So how about the practical insect population studies, and you get that data? So then how do you apply that to the field? How do you apply that to management?
Could you please repeat the question? I'm having some distortion. I cannot hear you properly.
Okay, so once you have the data, so the application, the interpretation of the data about the insect populations, and then how is that applied for landscape management, whether it be agricultural, forestry, etc. Maybe just a few words on that.
Yeah, so this study, you can make it specified based on the habitat you are choosing, or you can either target a specific insect species. Yeah, so it totally depends on your research design, what you are focusing over there. So obviously the stuff you will get, you can apply indices, population indices, and other things as well.
Okay, good. Searching in the, scrolling down through Skype to look for the questions. There was one that came up. This is actually sort of my area of interest. So we had two presentations about nursery technologies, innovations, both of them more or less focused on integrating with communities, improving restoration, whether that be planting private land or forest. But what the question is how available is that technology? How adoptable it is? You both mentioned that it is different than what are the challenges for getting people to adopt. So let's go with Clarence first, and then after that, we can go to June. So Clarence.
Thank you, Dr. James. May I request to repeat the question? So I think I didn't get.
Yeah, so basically, maybe I talked too long. So basically, how is it this nursery technologies that you're talking about, the geotagging, et cetera, how easy is it, or what are the challenges you face to get communities or other stakeholders to adopt it? Because it's why, you mentioned it's simple, but it is different than what might be the traditional methods.
Yes, thank you, Dr. James, for that question. So, yeah, even though the MMFNs or the modernized and mechanized forest nurseries are very ambitious, it can house thousands to millions of species. However, the main challenge in applying this in the local communities is about the capacity. How do we build capacities if these local communities are used to build up traditional nurseries? Although it has a good future for the Philippines as part of the Enhanced National Greening Program, or the ENGP. But the main challenge in this MMFN is about building capacity on the nursery holders or small holders of the traditional nurseries to convert it into an MMFN. Yeah, so it takes time. It takes time to build capacity and training and development to these local communities because, yeah, they are used to establish traditional nurseries and specifically small-scale nurseries. Yeah.
And just one last point, maybe you said it, but you broke up a little bit. Any concern about the finance? Is that something that holds it up, or it doesn't? It's affordable, please.
Actually, the government has spent over billions of funds in this program, so it needs to disperse in proper ways. That when it comes to funds, it is in the official audit of the country that in this program, it is really true that the government has spent billions to this program. Even they extended this until 2028. So we have the ENGP, which means the Enhanced National Greening Program. So this will extend to more communities, to more areas in which it needs build more on capacity building and training. Yeah, but when it comes to funds, I think there will be no problem because it is stated that the government spent and will spend billions in this project.
It's a priority. Okay, great. Another question just arrived, and I think this is actually to you. It came in a few minutes ago. So is the National Greening Program in the Philippines, is this still an ongoing concern, an ongoing program? I think that
yes. Okay. Yes, thanks. Actually, I also answered that in the platform, but I'll answer that again. So the NGP, it is still ongoing. So the government, specifically the Ministry of the Environment, has extended it. So ENGP, in which by next year, 2022, it will aim to restore and rehabilitate 1.2 million hectares of forest lands in the Philippines, as well as inculcating protection in the denuded forest lands. So it will extend until 2028. It is still ongoing.
Okay. All right. Thank you. Thank you for that. I got the questions out of order a little bit, but anyway, you handled it well. Thank you. So June Mandawali, sorry. Are you here?
I haven't seen her join, James.
Okay, all right. So it would be very interesting to hear that same situation for Papua New Guinea, but unfortunately she had some technical difficulties in joining. There's a question that goes back to the first session. So this is about the innovative technologies for improving and facilitating forest monitoring. So what are the challenges that you have about getting the results and the technologies more or less recognized by the proper authorities, so the government? So I think this would be a good question for Kuho Lee. You know, since you're looking at, issues of degradation and restoration, very political. This is a technology that maybe or may not be recognized by government agencies, or there's conflicts. So please go ahead and give us your experience and observations.
For me, the difficulty is using the drone for monitoring the forest. So maybe the cost can be the first problem when we apply into the forest, especially in the developing countries where we are focusing for the restoration more than other places. So the initial cost and the education to apply that technology, so it can be kind of high. So we need some support and the programs solving the problems for the organizations. So I think that is the most difficult problem.
So recognition from the government doesn't seem to be a problem so far for you.
Pardon?
So the government is willing to accept the results from the monitoring, government agencies.
As an aspect of the government agencies, I'm not really clear.
So my question's not clear? Okay, sorry. Let me try to articulate. The disadvantage is I'm a native speaker, so my grammar is bad. So do you have any resistance from government agencies about the data that is collected from the UAVs?
For me, when I tried the data collection from the Thailand, there wasn't really big problem. We could get just a license in advance for applying the drone, where we can get the accepted, where we can be accepted in the site. So of course there are some places like a military area where we cannot fly the drones, but except that situation, mostly we can get the permission from the government and we could fly there. So there wasn't really big problem with the government agencies for so far. Yeah.
Okay. All right, good. So very interesting, similar observation made by Shahrukh at the end of his presentation. So I think, Tuan Szerzynski, what I would like to ask you is sort of the same way, although you're not working with drones, but do you get resistance? Do you get resistance from the government agencies about the data that you are presenting? I mean, Oil Palm Watch, the very political situation. So do they tend to agree, or is there, some challenges?
Yeah, it's definitely challenging to have the government accept the data or the maps we create. Now the government has their own technicians and people to draw those polygons on a map and collect data and create their own maps. So they do it by themselves, and they tend to not trust other maps, or they usually are against using other maps for their laws or regulations.
Okay. Do they use similar technology, or?
Yeah, they use similar technologies for mapping, and they do more manual mapping as well, with comparing the provincial and district level borders, between a panel palm oil fields and forests. So they do a lot of more work manually. They are trying to find like a way to make it quicker and more efficient using like machine learning technologies and the algorithm we are trying to create. But they are still relying a lot on like manual drawing of the maps. Yeah.
Okay. All right. Thank you. There's also an additional question for the people in session 2. This deals more or less with what are the key enabling conditions to facilitate engagement with civil society? Again, the technology might be beyond what they use in the daily use. So when you are in fact dealing with local communities, maybe smallholders, et cetera, what is the major challenge to do that, and what's the way around it? So maybe we can go to Sony Lama for that, if the question is clear. You know, what's the major challenge to work with the local communities? If you have direct experience with that, and what's the method of enabling that?
So first of all, in Nepal, in least developed countries like Nepal, doing such research, it's itself a very difficult task. And our research was conducted in the most remote districts of Western Nepal. So the major challenge we face is that the community forest user group members were not used to those environment. We were not used to those remote sensing technologies, and the main thing is they do not know how to operate a simple Android phone. So initially, what we did was we gave them a rigorous training of how to use the Android phone. So it took couple of months to guide them. So that was the major challenges.
Okay. Is literacy an issue still?
Sorry?
Literacy. So can people read, or they can still get around in the most remote areas?
Yeah, most of them are illiterate. So
okay. Adds another layer of challenge for you.
Yeah.
Okay. So I think maybe Noor Bahar, can you also address that question if it was clear, hopefully? So, you know, you talked about working with the forest guards, et cetera, integrating with government, but also when you work with the community.
Yep.
What's
sure.
the key challenges? How do you get around it?
Yes, we mentioned in our paper that one key enabling factors is that if we want to promote the technologies, we need to do some stakeholder mapping, because you need to know what is the interest, what kind of incentive you need to give to your users, right? So for example, in some rural areas where you know that there will be limitation with the technology, with the mobile use, for example, we really have to be clear on what we're trying to achieve. And maybe from the stakeholder mapping, you'll get a feedback on what technology is the most appropriate. In some cases, just paper and pen is enough if there is, you know, it's just a limitation in the use of technology, for example. And in the cases of when we want to collaborate with the government agencies, for example, the Forest Watcher app really provide tools for the government and also the enforcement agency to act on it. So even if cases where there could be people might not acknowledge the data or the technology from the global platform, but once they see the use of the data, once they see that the data is helpful for them to do their job quickly in an effective manner, people will use the data from our case study.
Okay, so I think we've had a very lively and interesting session, even with a few technical difficulties. Certainly on behalf of the C4 ICRAP and FTA, I want to thank all the youths for putting together some very interesting some very interesting presentations, as well as they wrote full papers that are being published as part of the innovative technologies in the Asia and the Pacific roadmap. So that is available. One thing that really struck me is that, what we're talking about here is that we talked very positive and looked at optimistic outcomes. So we acknowledge that there's a lot of challenges facing the forest sector, but the presentations really focused on how innovative technologies can be used to help address those issues. As mentioned earlier by Vincent, these are some key solutions to climate change issues, biodiversity erosion, economic growth, and other challenges that the forest sector faces. So positive, making progress on those. And the presenters, again, we stress the word youth. So these are both students and young professionals. They shared their experience, their research, and as Raul Mata mentioned at the beginning, also they're very tech savvy. They have an important role to play in the future of developing, applying, and uptake and scaling of technologies of innovative technologies in Asia and the Pacific. And we got to say it that they are the forest managers and the forest guardians of the future. So I think what we saw here today is some a good example, and that we can feel that the future should be looking better. Okay. So again, I'd like to thank all the presenters. You put a lot of hard work into this, but also want to very much thank the people, the audience, and the people who joined and helped send in some questions, etc. So that also made the session very successful. And I just want to thank everyone for their excellent hard work. So I think at this point, Raul, are you there? You want to say a few words on behalf of FAO?
Yeah, can you hear me? Am I audible?
Yes, we can hear you.
Okay, great. Thanks a lot, Jim. Thanks to all the colleagues. Once again, good morning, good afternoon, good evening. No, I hope all of you agree with me that we had an excellent event with very informative presentations from all of our youth participants. We really had many inspiring examples of technologies, cutting-edge technologies in some contexts, and also relevant technologies in some other contexts. Very interesting experiences and also innovations. The potential of new and emerging technologies related to restoration and sustainable forest management was particularly interesting, as you might have noticed from presentations made by our colleagues from Philippines and other places. Really, they indicate a kind of potential for mobilizing large and targeted investments in future for forestry. And we are really looking forward to seeing many more such innovations and applications. Frankly speaking, personally, I would also look forward to seeing some technologies or innovations related to e-commerce or some forest-related trading platforms, forest financing, for example, like crowdfunding platforms and all. So somehow we missed those kind of innovations in the current session, but I think in future we can mobilize more and more presentations or contributions related to those technologies as well. Coming to the next step, or as a next important step, I think it is important for all of us to enhance the adoption and scaling up of sustainable technologies. Simultaneously strengthening necessary technical capabilities, both at the country level and regional level, and promoting increased collaboration among all key stakeholders and development partners. And FAO on its part is fully committed to that goal, including helping to promote the visibility of youth and their seminal work in this context, and will continue to serve as a reliable platform I can assure that much. So once again, let me express my sincere appreciation to all of you for joining hands with the FAO and C4 colleagues in this endeavor. Let us keep our partnership and our engagement going and work together even more closely to achieving our common goal, which as has been highlighted by Jim and Vincent, achieving a kind of very productive and sustainable forest sector. Thank you. Thank you once again, and all the best.
And let me just one last word. I just want to stress that Fabio has shared with you the volume of the papers from all 13 papers. So we encourage you also to share that with your friends, with your colleagues as widely as possible. So this is a way of helping advertise and spread the word about these very exciting studies and the technology. So thank you very much. I think that we've had a full session. And again, thank you all for your participation. Have a nice evening.
Yeah, Jim, on the same count, let us also hope we will have some intensive country level presentations in future, probably next year, inviting these experts to present their innovations and technologies wherever feasible. Yeah.
Excellent input. That's right, Rob. Thank you very much. Good input.
Nice idea. Thank you. Thank you, everyone.
Okay.
Bye.
Bye.
Okay, goodbye.